Sometimes during diagnostics, you may not determine all the problems when you're trying to narrow down an issue with a vehicle. So in this case, it was originally diagnosed as being a bad alternator. And this is an alternator with 145,000 miles on it. This alternator is bad, already been diagnosed as such, but until you get the serpentine belt off, you really don't know if there's some other contributing factors, because unfortunately when you got a belt with different components all running on that one belt, when one goes bad or one component goes bad, sometimes it contributes to other components going bad. So up until the serpentine belt was removed, it was determined to just be the alternator. But then it was discovered to be the AC compressor as well, and I'll show that in a minute, how it was determined that the AC compressor is bad. There's some other tests that can be done to determine what's wrong with the AC compressor, but in this case, just turning the pulley wheel made it very clear that it's bad. One, it screeches, makes a knocking sound, and then also, as if this was the AC compressor, the pulley wheel moves in and out, which it's not supposed to. So the AC compressor will be replaced along with the alternator. Here is a side-by-side comparison of the new and the old AC compressors. So this is the old one, obviously, but you can hear that noise, and it does spin pretty easily, but you can hear the grinding in it. And then here's the new one. No sound. The other thing is it doesn't move back and forth at all, and it's really hard to see, but I can feel it in my hand that it's sliding back and forth. This is the new AC compressor for a 2008 Honda CRV EXL. It's almost exactly the same, mostly, except for on the new remanufactured one, it's got this additional piece where one of the lines goes in. So the old one looks like this, the new one has this. Other than that, they're virtually the same. When this one was purchased online, it said came pre-filled with oil or PEG 45 oil, only to find out pre-filled means they just put some in it. They didn't put what was required to be in it. For this vehicle, it's supposed to be 4.5 ounces. It's only got 1 ounce, and went to quite a few auto places trying to find the PEG 46 oil, and the only one that I could find was a compressed type, but I've got to get the oil into the AC compressor before I actually put it in, because part of conditioning the AC to ensure that the seals are oiled is you've got to put the oil in here, put it up on end, rotate the oil around, because if you don't follow this process, you could potentially blow out the AC, and then also it won't be covered by warranty because it was not oiled properly. Just be aware, if you do buy an AC compressor, that if it says pre-filled, doesn't necessarily mean that it's pre-filled to what it's supposed to be. And actually, if you look up, this compressor can be used for many different cars. So depending on the car, is how much oil goes into the AC compressor. In this case, it requires 4.5. It only has 1. So I have this PAG 46 oil, and this is an 8 ounce, more than enough. In order to make 103 milliliters, that equals 3.5 ounces, I would need to fill this up 3 times plus 10 milliliters. This bolt right here to refill the air compressor with PAG 46 oil is a 17 millimeter. So what I did here in order to make the new one the same as the old one is this piece was on here like this. I took this piece off. This cap right here was right on here. So I took it off here and then put it back on here. And these are only going to be in place until I get it in position and put the lines back on it. These being in place will prevent the PAG 46 oil from coming out of the air compressor. Also, when you do remove the old one, just be prepared that PAG 46 oil will come out of there as well as there. This AC compressor did come with these new O-rings, one for the high side and one for the low side, and those will go directly on the lines before it connects to the new AC compressor. This is the low side line. I just removed this O-ring and put on the new O-ring. I just wiped this up. I didn't use any kind of brush on it because don't want to put any grooves in it that are going to contribute to leaks, so I just wiped it down pretty good with some rags. So I got the air compressor in. I've started working on putting this line back on, and then I'll work on putting the other one on, and then I'll put the bolts through to the engine block. It's easier to put these lines on when the air compressor isn't bolted to the engine block yet. I mean, it's tight space no matter what, but it's actually easier to get to these little bolts that hold the lines on when it's not all the way up attached to the engine. So I got the air compressor up underneath. You want to make sure you get the air compressor on the little hangers just above where the top bolts go in. And the top bolts are right there, and one over there. And then you got your 2 bolts. I don't know why the light keeps going out. One right there, one right there. Once you get those bolts started, high and low lines on. I mentioned earlier in the video that the new AC compressor came with this piece on it, and I removed it. The high side line on the car has this already attached to the line, and the way that it's attached to the line is with one of these or 2 of these threaded bolts that you put into the block, and then you put nuts on here. It didn't include the nuts, but these are put into the air compressor, and then you put nuts on them